Elijah Hollands, the newest Blue. He's
Love it.
born on the 25th of April, Paul, 2002.
It's ridiculous.
So he's got that Aries energy
Feel
about
old,
him,
mate.
Aries Taurus energy about him.
Feel bloody old.
This guy,
2000s.
yeah, this guy is. There's a big question mark around him for obvious reasons. Obviously, he's come from the Suns, and the talent is unquestionable. I almost hold myself back from getting too excited because I know what he's capable of. How are you viewing Elijah Hollands?
I view him as the funny one, right? Now, hear me out with this one. You're going to laugh at this. Do you know that there's always a player that comes to the club, regardless of if they were drafted in the draft, if they're one of those players where they're your homegrown, they're your own player, or there's someone else you pick up from another club that has this hanging over their head. Oh, he was touted as a former number one pick in his draft. He was that guy, though. He was actually that person. If you go back and look at a few of the draft profiles, he was actually touted as the number one pick by many in the 2022 AFL draft before his ACL injury. And it was in that year during COVID. And, you know, when you're a 17, 18-year-old kid, you know what's going on, mate. Yeah. You have an ACL injury. The world stopped. You go up to the Gold Coast where, let's be frank, mate, no one wants to go up there to play football. Let's be fair dinkum, right? I know that might sound that's a Carlton arrogance, but no one wants to go there to play football. Now they might because Dimmer's up there, but there's no history. There's no substance to that type of club. So culture, when you go up there, there's nothing there, mate. They've never made finals. They haven't done anything, mate. So I think when you're a kid going up there, I think it can get laborious. And that's the worst thing. When you're an 18, 19-year-old playing a game you love and it starts to become laborious and your coach isn't picking you, you know, I don't think it was for lack of attitude or lack of trying or anything like that. He just couldn't find his way into the team. So if you go and look at that draft that he was picked up in, so he was number 7 in that 2020 national draft.
Yeah.
If you go look at the picks around him, there's some pretty decent players that got picked up in the draft. You've got, like, Essendon had that trio of players in the top 10 who all look pretty good. Nick Cox, who's been injured. Archie Perkins looks okay. Zach Reed's been injured as well. Tanner Bruins at Geelong now, who looks a really exciting prospect. You got Heath Chapman at Freo, Ollie Henry, Max Holmes, Jack Bowie. So there's some pretty talented players out of that draft, and he fits that mold. He's just been injured, and he's been up at a team that just hasn't. None of that organisation has hit their straps at all. So he's exactly what we need because he's a midfield forward or can be a forward mid. I think they can switch, and he can switch between the two, which is beautiful. So, and I'm looking for players now. I think we've got that contested, big-bodied nature player around the contest and around the ball. I want to see him be the guy that adds to the depth of he's the finishing at the end of the chain. So I've got in my notes here, get on the end of chains and finish the work that the bigger bodies put in, which has always been, it wasn't a question mark in the second half of the season because we started scoring heavily, but I want to, you know what I want to start to see? I want to start to see the running goals. You know, the chain of handballs where we get the ball out of a contest and we're streaming towards goal and he's the bloke on the end of it streaming to, 40, 35 out and nailing a goal like that. So, it's a little bit difficult to do when you've got opposition zones in place, but that's something I think he can definitely add. So, and he's another rotation to the midfield, which is always great. So, the words I put down are just 4 words, exactly what we need, just with regards to position, midfield, forward. I think it's perfect.
Yeah, there's a few elements here. So we lose Paddy Dow in our rotation on the list, we'll call it.
Yep.
I had a look at Elijah's highlights, in particular his highlights in the VFL Grand Final, where he was
spectacular,
scintillating. 33 touches, 10 tackles, 8 clearances. He was one of the best players on the ground, and because I didn't know nothing about him. So when I look at him, I'm like, what is he? Like, the best way I can explain what I saw was, Dave Cunningham's got class about him.
Pommy loves that word.
I feel like if Dave Cunningham's class, Elijah's like a more grunty version of what I see in Dave Cunningham. He's got this real explosion in him. Attacks the contest hard, and going off just the highlights in the grand final or the VFL grand final, I feel like that's a Michael Voss type player. Like we now know at Carlton, like what's the brand of football you've got to play to make the team, and he plays it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and it's ironic that he put in his best VFL performance on our ground. So make of that what you will.
Yeah,
maybe he was trialing, maybe he knew. Look, there's what I like there is that there's added pressure on him, right, in those type of games because it's a grand final, and he's put in arguably a career best performance in the seconds. In probably the most high, well, you'd say a high pressure moment, given it's a VFL grand final. Obviously, he's played AFL, but what I like is that he did, and you mentioned too, he just doesn't shirk the task at all. I think there is also, is it a sentimental thing? Yeah, to a certain point, but having his younger brother there and seeing his younger brother do so well will also be a motivating factor for him too. And I think they can maybe both ground each other in it all, and they can have an exciting time. They're both there together, and one's not going to miss each other, which is great. So, I reckon Ollie might teach a few things to Elijah as well. So, I want to see him, and I think we saw in his Gold Coast highlights package as well. Like I said, his finishing ability, but I'd like to see him potentially, and I don't know if they will do this, just play certain games where he plays predominantly forward. I don't know what that looks like. It could be a half forward role, something like we saw Dave Cunningham do when he first came into the team against, who did Cutters play against first? Was it Hawthorn?
Maybe Gold Coast
or Hawthorn? Yeah. So potentially playing that role for the first little bit and then rotating his way on the ball, or maybe he might just find his way on the ball. I don't know, but the beauty is we can get both aspects of it. So, versatility is such a big thing as well, and that just adds to the depth chart we have too. So, as much as he's got a lot of talent with regards to winning the ball on the ball, I think there's also definitely scope there for him to get ahead of the ball. How many times have we said it? Oh, we want midfielders who can kick goals. We want midfielders who can kick goals. And I think that's what's going to set him apart from the rest. So he's going to be the guy on the end of chains, I hope, finishing the work of the bigger bodies on the ball as well. So I don't know, where does he sit in the scheme of things? Because I've got a lot of people with their, and I don't buy too much into it. The best 22s and best 23s. There are a lot of people who have got him in that. But is that just a case of because he's a recruit that you kind of get sucked into? Oh, we've picked him up, so he just has to play. I don't know.
I think he's going to surprise us a bit.
Okay.
So if we zoom out and we look at the total picture of his circumstances, so obviously he's had the court case, which has happened. It's come and gone. He's copped his slap on the wrist. He's no longer on the contract that he was on. So this is a 1-year deal, essentially. Yeah. So he's obviously stuffed up, and I actually think we are in a really optimistic situation with him, because when you're a 21-year-old professional athlete, you don't want to be going to court. And I know, I could see it on his face. You're going to court. It brings with it a sense of
embarrassing
reality. Well, yeah, there's a bit of shame, and it's probably a bit of a kick up the arse and a reminder of, oh my God, what am I potentially, I don't want to be in here ever again.
Yeah, of course.
So all of a sudden, we talk about the environment that he's in. Everything that you are in life is a big part of that is the environment that you are in. So he goes from Gold Coast where, like you said, let's be honest, off field as a culture, maybe not as strong as what we have at Carlton. He comes home to Victoria, living with his brother, who is already showing us great signs of professionalism and standards. He's on a 1-year deal, so he's going to have to prove himself to earn himself another contract. It's all systems go for him, and now is the time for him to have the best year of his career and lock in. He's been in the system a few years now. I just sense it to be a real perfect storm for him.
Yeah. And I think what's great for him too. Good start to the preseason, which we've seen. He's there. He's been at all the sessions.
Yep.
He's hit the ground running with regards to actually getting out there and getting his touch and getting involved with the group. So you cannot underestimate how important a strong preseason is, especially when it's your first season at a new club. So, we've seen him early, and he looks in good nick. He looks ready to rock and roll. And now, touch wood, that body of his holds up, and we might have our hands on a gem. I don't want to be overly optimistic to a point where just because he's come in and we've picked him up and we're interested in him and we really like him, that he's just going to explode and flourish into this amazing footballer. I think, tempering the expectations is always one thing, because he's actually got to go out there and do it first.
Yep.
That's the humility piece as well that the club speaks about too, earning the right, earning the respect. And Cripper mentioned it in his press conference as well a couple of days ago. He actually mentioned Elijah Hollands as one of the players that he singled out with regards to coming in and actually doing a really good job. And Cripper spoke about all you can do in the early part is just earn the respect of your teammates. And so far he's done that. So far, so good for the young man.
Yep.
Excited to see him play. Really excited to see what he does.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. It's all set up for him. Everything is in his control, and there's no room to get complacent, because he's now part of a contender and a team that's built its culture for a number of years now. We've been trying to get it right. Yeah. And so, with a stable club, hopefully a stable environment, he'll get the best out of himself, and we'll see what happens.
I also think, I think the last little point I'll raise on it too is, and we mentioned it off the top, I think it is a shrewd bit of list management because of the price that was paid for him when he first came into the system. He was a number 7 pick in the national draft, and that has to count for something. There was a huge opinion there that suggested this guy was a top 10 talent in Australia at the time, and a few things haven't gone his way. He's been at a club that struggled for form. He's been in an environment what we've seen is probably not the most ideal for development. And now he comes to the club, and we have paid nowhere near that number 7 pick for him. So there has to be some sort of weight on that number 7 pick with regards to who he is as a player, clearly. So I think just from that point of view, what we've outlaid to get him is I think it's a wise bit of list management. It's a whole low risk, high reward scenario if we can get him right and he can get himself right.
Yeah. Well, see how he goes. Ladies and gents, that's Elijah Hollands. Share with us your thoughts in the comments below.